power.
Right.
There was I may have sent this to you, but at one point, Nancy had an opportunity to meet with Senator Paul Sarbanes of Maryland.
Right.
I was out in California attending the deposition of a federal judge in our case, Inslaw taking his deposition in his courtroom. A guy who was involved in the misconduct when he was the number 2 guy at the Justice Department, and by then he was a federal district judge in San Francisco, D. Lowell Jensen. And so I was out there and couldn't go to the meeting with Sarbanes, but Nancy had done her homework and had written to Sarbanes and talked about his role in demanding accountability during the Watergate scandal. Apparently he did a lot of good work trying to force an accountability on the Watergate scandal. And so he was a logical person to take interest in Inslaw, And he arranged for the chief investigator for Senator Biden. Biden was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee at the time.
Right.
And he arranged with Ronald LeGrand, an African-American lawyer who was the chief investigator under Biden on the Senate Judiciary Committee, to come see Nancy and me and try to help us. Because we're getting stonewalled. Everybody is, And LeGrand had a source in the criminal division of the Justice Department. So LeGrand came down to see us at the behest of Senator Sarbanes, the senior U.S. Senator in Maryland. And we told him what we think was going on, including illegal sales of our software. And whatever we knew at that time, which would be compared to today, elementary,
Yeah.
And so LeGrand says, I've got a trusted source of 20 years who's a senior career official in the criminal division of the Justice Department with a title. And he's asked me to pass on certain information to you and Nancy. He said, what you think happened did happen. You're not crazy. Only you don't know squat about how dirty the Inslaw case really is. And if you ever learn half of it, you'll be sickened. It's a lot dirtier for the Department of Justice than Watergate was, both in its depth and its breadth. The Department of Justice has been compromised at every level on the Inslaw case. And so Elliot Richardson then wrote to Senator Biden, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and explained what his chief investigator had alleged. And he said to him in the letter, we don't know if it's true, obviously, but it's too important not to try to get to the bottom of this. And for that, we need your help to bring your chief investigator and his trusted source from the criminal division in the Justice Department before a duly constituted body to be interrogated under oath. And then in response to that letter he sent to Senator Biden, he gets a letter back from the chief investigator, whom he had not addressed, Ron LeGrand. And the letter from LeGrand was preposterous, saying something that was not true, that he had told us and Richardson that this information was off the record and it could not be used, which is just total baloney, And so Elliot wrote not to LeGrand, but to Biden again.
I have it in front of me. First, he responds back to LeGrand responds back, because of his strong belief in the separation of powers doctrine, the chairman has a firm policy that the committee will not intervene in pending litigation. And then a couple of paragraphs down, any committee staff findings or any inferences drawn from the information developed as part of that investigation can only be used as part of the committee's oversight process.
Yeah, and then Richardson pointed out how absurd the whole statement was, but Biden never answered Richardson, and Legrand, that's the name of that African American chief investigator, told Nancy and me at the time, I did not draft that letter and I did not sign it. An aide to Biden drafted the letter and forged my signature.
Legrand said that?
Yeah.
Is he alive today?
Is he alive? Yeah, he's alive.
Yeah.
Whether
wow.
he would confirm that, I have my doubts. It's true. Yeah. What I'm telling you is true. Yeah. But he suffered pretty badly.
Yeah.
He became ostracized over this, and he quickly left the Senate Judiciary Committee staff and got a job in the House of Representatives on somebody's staff, and then he had to leave there right away. They were out to put pain on him, Yeah. To shut his mouth, I think, And so whether he would confirm any of that, I have my doubts.
Well, I'm sure he wouldn't, yeah.
I'm telling you, it's all true, know. And I think he's, as far as I can tell, a decent and honorable guy. But they put pressure on him that beyond what he could take, And he left the government. I'm sure he wanted to continue to work in the government, and he couldn't because of this thing. But it's also revealing about Senator Biden.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he? He's the type of guy who would normally want to salute L.A. Richardson. It's kind of Richardson was good government always, and most people would want to be associated with him for their own self-glory, right? And for Biden to ignore Richardson is kind of counterintuitive.
But Mr. Hamilton, let me ask you the question. Now, you've been living this thing a long period of your life. Have you seen any difference between the Democrats and Republicans as far as this deep corruption goes? Especially when the intelligence agencies are involved, it's a whole nother level.
I'm sorry?
Especially when the intelligence agencies are involved.
Right.
It's a whole nother level of corruption.
Yes, I agree with that. And I have no expectation of anything good happening because I think they get by with anything they want to get by with.
Yeah, it's only getting worse.
Classified stuff.
It's only getting worse.
Classified.
Yeah. Now, did you ever receive any kind of justice, any kind of settlement, throw you a bone?
No, not a penny.
Just shut him up. Just shut up William Hampton. Send him $5 million, $10 million.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, nothing. One of our lawyers who had worked in Central America, I guess, he said the government can pay Inslaw cash.
Yeah.
They can do anything they damn please. And it made no sense. But we had a friend of the family who was a very successful businessman who helped Inslaw financially at one point. And he used to say to me, one thing that doesn't make any sense to me, why don't they just pay Inslaw off?
Right.
And the answer to that, I think, I've told you this, I think, but it came from Admiral Murphy. And when I contacted him after the apparent change of heart on the part of the CIA director, George Tenet, about settling the CIA part of the Inslaw case. And I asked Admiral Murphy, do you have any insight on why he did such an abrupt change? What happened? And he said, it's my hunch, Bill, I told you this, that there's another use of your software that you don't know about. And it involves something so seriously wrong that money alone cannot cure the problem. and that unless and until Inslaw discovers that additional use of your software, the government may never compensate the company. And he said, I'm confident you're going to figure it out, Bill. And then within 2 weeks, he dropped dead. And he had, of course, he would call me on the telephone, and so I would not be surprised that NSA was monitoring all of those conversations, you know. And he was in a position to be quite lethal, because as chief of staff to Vice President Bush, Bush was in charge of under Reagan, all of the secret stuff.
Right.
And when Bush was the CIA director, his deputy director was Admiral Murphy. So Murphy was a very smart guy, and as you would expect, a 4-star retired admiral, not too much fearful, you know. And I'm sure the people doing all of this misconduct regarded him as a real threat because he knew too much. And at one point, he called me on the phone. This was shortly before he died. And he said, I'm going to volunteer to serve as Inslaw's intelligence guru and go with Boyd and Gray for his meetings with government officials about settling the Inslaw case, just to keep the government officials honest, which tells you he knows that they know that he's in on it, you know, and that he's in a position to tell them when they're lying, you know.
Sure.
And so if NSA, I don't know that NSA was monitoring it, except that I know that I was told they were, by the RCMP, they're monitoring our phone calls and telephone and emails, and I have no doubt that would be true. Why wouldn't they do it, right?
No, absolutely. Now, we only have a few minutes left, by the way, in this hour. Got about 10 minutes left. Let me double check. Now, when he was saying to you that they're using this for something so horrific that you don't even want to know what it is, do you think it was drug trafficking, human trafficking, terrorism?
No, I think no. I, of course, could be wrong, Ed, but I can explain to you why I'm pretty confident that it was the main core political blackmail version of PROMIS.
Gotcha.
Used by the White House, select members of the White House National Security Council for blackmail operations against such targets as members of Congress and their staffs, religious leaders, whatever it takes, you know?
Gotcha.
And you get dirt on them, you know, and then you blackmail them. And that's what I never got a chance to ask Murphy whether I was correct. He was confident I would figure it out. And about 2 weeks before Castellero was found dead, that Charles Hayes, the guy I told you about, Nancy, Kentucky, hillbilly type guy,
right,
who had worked for Division D as a contractor for years, he called me, and because I had introduced him, meaning Charles Hayes, to Danny Castellero as a potential source, because he's a former CIA contractor, you know. And Hayes called me and he said, Castellero is planning to visit a sensitive facility in Washington, D.C., and it'll get him killed. He's not listening to me. He's being very strong-headed. But if you have any influence with him, you better use it, because he'll get killed. And the facility, Hayes never told me where it was in D.C., I called Danny Castellero and passed on the warning. And Castellero said, the facility is under the control of George K. Pender. And I already knew from Castellero that George K. Pender was a former senior CIA clandestine operative who Castellero believed was the head of what Castellero called the octopus, a group of former U.S. and Allied and senior intelligence operatives who primarily for their own personal financial